What's up, guys? Kool-Aid here. Welcome to another episode of Good Gun or Polished Turd. Today we are going to be talking about the C85 Canister, formerly known as the Enforcer C85 Modified. Now there are two different versions of this weapon now, one that goes on the Vanguard and one that goes on the Harasser. And you are not going to see any Harasser gameplay from me at all. Every time I tried using this thing on the Harasser, things went horribly wrong, but there is not that much of a difference. I will talk about the specifics in a minute, but I will tell you right now that using these on a Harasser is not a great idea, and that's mostly due to the fact that these aren't really great guns. That's a little bit of a hint to what what my verdict on these will be, but also the Harasser nerfs made these a little less desirable on there as well. So like usual, I'll start off with my pre-weapon review rating, and I'll be honest with you guys, I did not use this weapon very much because it didn't take long to realize how bad it was. It was honestly one of the worst weapons in the game, probably one of the least used weapons in the game, and really there's two reasons for that. One, it was just awful. I mean, shotguns do not go very well on the tops of vehicles. Shotguns, to take advantage of a shotgun, you have to use your environment to close the gap, get in close. Well, you can't really do that very well on a tank or harasser. You can't get in them nooks and crannies and use cover very well. So that's one main reason why it was pretty awful, and why it's still going to be a little bit lacking after you hear my review. And then the other reason is because there was never really any reason to run these anti-infantry weapons, because with the anti-armor weapons you would essentially get the best of both worlds, and that has been changed with Performance Update 2, and I haven't had a chance to test out those anti-armor weapons in depth at all yet. So I don't know how greatly that's been changed. I don't know how much more desirable the anti-infantry weapons will be now. But those are the main reasons why this thing was complete and utter fail before Performance Update 02. So what exactly did they change? Well, I will read off the C85 canister changes, and then I'll tell you the differences between the canister and the canister H. Just a couple slight differences there. So anyways, they renamed it from the Enforcer C85 Modified to the C85 Canister. Of course, there's now a resist type vehicle shotgun canister. This resist type does no damage to heavy armor, but does good damage to light armor, and I did test this against harassers. You can actually eat them up pretty good. If they are at close range, it does, obviously drop off pretty quickly. And believe it or not, even though this thing is a shotgun, and I'll do more about this in a minute, it is kind of hard to hit moving targets dead on. Now Nanoweave and Max Kinetic Armor protects against this damage type. No big surprise there. Now the max damage did get lowered from 150 to 125. The max damage range decreased from 40 all the way down to 12 meters. The minimum damage decreased from 125 to 80. The minimum damage range decreased from 100 to 40 meters. And those all sound like huge nerfs to the weapon, and you're wondering how could it be any better when they nerfed all this very important stuff. Well, it's just basically a way how they completely restructured this weapon, and I'll tell you right now, the gun is in a better off place than it was before. Now they also increased the magazine size from 5 to 8 rounds. The magazine size certification now has a second rank that adds 2 rounds. The ammo capacity has been increased from 100 to 160. The ammo capacity certifications now grant 8 rounds per rank. They added a headshot multiplier of 1.5, added a leg shot multiplier of 0.1. The pellet count has been increased from 8 to 12. The projectile speed has been increased from 225 to 400, and the projectile gravity has been increased from 1 all the way up to 7.5. And those last three are the big ones, and that's how they offset those nerfs, or the apparent nerfs that they have listed on here, and kind of how they completely restructured this weapon. Now the difference between that version and the H version is that the H version has its maximum damage range decreased all the way down to 8 meters, and they've had its minimum damage range decreased down to 30 meters from 100. So just slight differences there between the H version and the normal version. So what does all this mean? Well, there's really no getting around the fact that if you have this equipped, you are going to lose most tank v tank battles, simply because most tanks out there are going to be running two forms of anti-armor. So to really look at this weapon, you're gonna have to really use it in real specific situations, and that goes for any anti-infantry weapon on top of a tank, not just the canister shell. But again, that really just limits the use of these. So if you were forced to use an anti-infantry weapon on top of your tank, is this one that you would choose? Well, like I said, it is in a much better off spot through that restructuring. The main thing added in Performance Update 02 is some effective range. You can actually have an effective range out to, I would say, 50 to 75 meters with this thing now. Beyond that, it starts getting pretty iffy. You can actually land shots at extremely long ranges with this, but you're never really going to pick up kills. And I would say 75, maybe 100 meters is about the last range where you'd actually want to pull the trigger on this weapon. Previously to Performance Update 02, anything beyond about 30 meters and this weapon just turned to complete crap. So in that regard, the weapon is much better. You still get one-hit kills out to about 20 meters, but honestly, the amount of one-hit kills that I picked up in this thing was very, very slim. And who's to know that even if those one-hit kills that I did pick up, if they weren't already on injured targets to begin with. So it's definitely improved, but it still does have some limitations. Obviously, it's still going to have a shorter effective range than all the other anti-infantry weapons, which makes sense. It is a shotgun. But one thing that you might not have thought of with this is that you actually have to be extremely accurate with this weapon, and that's not something that you typically think of with a shotgun. But if you'll notice on this, it does not have your typical shotgun reticle. It's got more of a crosshair, and I'll show you some examples of how accurate you actually have to be to get shots to land at close range. Now the spread will get bigger as it goes on, but then of course you're going to do less effective damage as the spread gets bigger because less pellets are going to hit. But just look at how accurate you actually have to be at close range to land these shots. And then if you're not hitting dead on, look how many shots it's actually going to take you. At this 20 meters or so, where you could see me landing one-hit kills previously, if I'm missing the target even just slightly, you're going to see that it takes up to 6 shots to kill from this range, which is something you might not think of. Most of you are used to that circle reticle that does normally come with shotguns. So you do have to be pretty accurate with these, especially the closer you are to your target. And it's more than likely designed that way, just to make it a little bit higher skill cap. Even though it is a shotgun, they just don't want you being able to put something in the center of your screen and really not having to be accurate with it. So it's just something I wanted to make you guys all aware of, how accurate you actually have to be with them, even though it is a shotgun. The other thing that kind of bothers me about these is the angle at which you can go up and down. You just can't go as far as you would be able to with the Cobalt, and I don't really understand why. This is supposed to be kind of the dominant close range vehicle weapon. I would like to be able to angle further up and further down just to kill those light assaults or engineers coming in trying to get my tank, and I really don't see how that would make this weapon overpowered. But anyways, to wrap this up and give my final rating of this, if I had to use an anti-infantry weapon on top of my tank, if that was the only options available, I would actually rank this gun around the 6.5. It's not that bad. It isn't, and it's not near as bad as people will make it out to be. But there are very few times when I would actually want an anti-infantry weapon equipped on top of my tank. And in the great scheme of things, and you start comparing against anti-armor weapons, which actually still damage infantry, I'm going to give this gun a 4.5 as my overall final ranking, making this the first gun that I'm actually going to call a polished turd. There's probably no time that I will actually bust this out after this video has been made, simply because when I pull a tank, I want to be able to dominate other tanks, and the lack of versatility on this is just something that I don't find desirable. So anyways, guys, those are my thoughts. Let me know if you have completely different thoughts. Fill up the comment section. I'd like to hear what your guys' opinion is on this weapon. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll talk to y'all later.